Hey, good afternoon.
Or good morning.
No, not a good morning. Terrible morning. No,
What
it's a
happened?
good afternoon. We'll stick with now. Stick with good afternoon.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Co-Captain Richard Million here.
Other co-captain, MC Howe.
All right. So I'm not going to say good morning because the morning was ridiculous, but good
Why?
afternoon. It's a good afternoon now. This morning, the whole point of our podcast name, Cats on Guard, I had like a 5 a.m. departure, and it's like the sun's not even freaking up yet. And we tell this on a bunch of episodes, like we monitor the emergency frequency on the backup radio, and the cats are meowing first thing in the morning.
Oh, well, cats, they're kind of a nocturnal aminal. I can't say
Aminal.
it, but that's what
The
they
aminals.
are. Yeah.
Well, these other, I don't know who these pets are. These animals need to cut it out. I'm barely awake enough to fly a plane at 5 a.m., let alone listen to your cats. And then the angry, grumpy other pilot in another airplane, like, cut it out, you bunch of hooligans. And then they go meow, meow, even more. And then someone did like the Meow Mix song. Meow, meow, meow,
That's
meow, meow,
great.
meow, meow.
Oh my
I'm like,
God.
I have a 1 hour and 15-minute flight, and I'm like, how bored are you people? This is the whole, I know we made the podcast after this, but like, ugh.
You're making me laugh because there was mention when I was at Recurrent Training recently about upcoming hiring wave, and I thought to myself, how fun would it be to be on the hiring committee and just ask some wild oddball questions of these guys? Like, so you get to the flight and you meet the captain, and the captain says, so you want to fly this one or do you want to meow?
Right, meow.
Questions like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Well,
a legit interview question. That actually would gauge someone's
I think
personality
so.
to ask them, like, hey, how do you feel about the meowing on guard frequency while you're flying?
Do you think that it has picked up? Have you noticed it has picked up since we've been doing this? Or is it like when you buy a new car, all of a sudden you notice how many other people are driving that same car? We're
It
talking
could be
about cats. I mean, we don't talk about it that much. We've talked about it, 3 times maybe in the history of this podcast, but that is the name of the podcast. So it's always on my mind. And when I hear it, I always say,
you
Cats Up
giggle. You
Guard.
giggle inside a little. You're like, that's my podcast name.
You know what I was thinking? Did I tell you this on air? I was thinking every time I hear it, I'm going to say, I'm just going to get right on the frequency. Cats on Guard podcast.
catsongguard@gmail.com. Dude, oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
Should I do that?
Like it would shut them up because they'd actually have something they want to look at now. And if they have Wi-Fi, they're gonna look. Or
I'm going to
this
do
is
it.
gonna spread it like wildfire. Do it. Oh
I'm
my
going
gosh.
to
So,
do it.
all right. So we came here to record about recurrent training group pilots, but we're ranting about the cats again.
I'm not ranting. I'm enjoying
No.
it.
All right. So I guess it was a terrible morning living it, but now that I'm talking about it, it's kind of hilarious. And now that I know that I can plug our podcast in when this is happening, I totally want to. Now I'm going to get excited about the meowing.
All right. Wait, let's practice. Okay. Meow.
Catsonguard.com.
No, that's
Oh,
not
we
it.
don't have. Oh, we don't have it. We don't have an email. Catsonguard@gmail.com.
There you go.
Or just say
All right.
Cats on Guard podcast.
Yeah.
Check out the Cats on Guard part. Cats on Guard part. Nope. Maybe I need to practice this before I get to do it live
practice.
on the emergency frequency. Maybe we shouldn't
You'll
do
just
that.
have to do it over and over and over again.
But we'd have to broadcast that on the emergency frequency, which would be.
That's where you know everybody's listening.
There's like the FAA is going to email us on that catsonguard@gmail.com. We heard you on frequency, and we
Can they triangulate that and figure out where it's coming from?
They claimed they could, but everyone laughed it on their face and continued meowing about it. Is there liability to that? Like, they're breaking the rules. So what if we like broke the rules with a shameless plug? I don't know.
I don't know.
Am I stooping to their level by prompting our podcast on the same emergency frequency? It just doesn't feel right, but I'm going to do it once.
Okay. All right.
If we get an email from the feds, we'll just not do it anymore. We're sorry.
There you go. All right. Why are we really here? It's not to complain about that.
No, it's to complain about recurrent training.
To complain? Yeah, okay. It is. It always is.
That's all I do. I complain. I don't praise here. Come on.
No. All right. I'm going to, you know what? Hold the line here. I'm going to say something. This is a moment of absolute I wouldn't say I was enlightened when I had this thought today. I was on a walk with my next door neighbor, Tom, the pharmacist, who's kind of going through a career. He's weighing his career options of the corporate life, and he was telling me all about the corporate life, and it just sounds like it never ends. The misery, the meetings, the bosses kind of weighing on you, the life choices, the being 9 to 5 traffic and fitting everything. And you know what I thought to myself? I just got back from recurrent training, and this 1 week of my year that this is the only week of the year that I get stressed at this job. How
Oh,
does
that's
that
awesome.
feel? That
Because you go
is
into
a
your 9 to
pretty
5 is, like, interesting.
it's a pretty good feeling, I will tell you that.
No, performance reviews and quarterly reports and productivity meetings and laser
No meetings,
focusing,
nothing.
no circling back, and
No,
please don't
nope.
hesitate to yeah, office jargon.
So, as much as we dislike recurrent training, it's a couple of days a year. So,
What does recurrent training alright, like, in a brief summary of your week, what is recurrent training for you?
what it is once a year, we pilots have to go to school, basically. We have a ground school classroom day where we relearn a bunch of stuff that most of us have forgotten. Federal regulations, op specs, which is basically a book telling the airline how it's going to run itself, and then airplane systems, navigation things, and it's basically a day of school
Just
followed
one for the
by
whole week?
well, where I work, yes. Now, other airlines are doing it differently. If you want to have a long history of it, I can tell you how it's been and how it's evolved. There have been in the past multiple days of ground school, followed by simulator training, where we go in, pretend we're flying a full motion, very realistic simulator. And we do all kinds of maneuvers and have experiences with emergencies that we don't ever see in real life. Um, so I'm sure there's still airlines out there that do multiple days of all of this stuff. Most, however, in this day and age, have moved to what is called the AQP or Advanced Qualification Program, which is just another way of training, which requires less in person stuff, more online stuff, but still the same stuff. So
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
what it
I
is.
I do 2 days of ground school, 2 days of sim, and then, like, a check ride. That's my week. The cargo job I worked was miserable. It was, like, an entire week in a classroom, and then you take a trip to the sim, and you spend a whole day on the airlines, and then you do 2 or 3 days from the sim, and then a whole day in the airlines. It was a 2-week event, which they're terribly inefficient at. They were so stubborn, they refuse to, like, get with the times, but, yeah, those are the 2 that I'm most familiar with.
Okay. Well, what goes on when we're there? I mean, that was the brief history, but
Your ground school, did they cover, like, important changes to the rules? Like, that you haven't seen since last year or maybe didn't exist last year?
you're asking me to remember what I just did
Yeah, it was like,
after I walked out of the building and purged my brain.
"Okay, you passed." What score did you get?
I got 100%. Eh,
Does everybody get
how I
100%? Just you.
everybody
You're just the
everybody
best student?
everybody everybody gets 100%. No, you know what happened? There were only 2 of us in the class this year. It was
That's
just me
it?
and yeah, it was just me and my partner.
That's cool.
Oftentimes in the past, I've been in rooms with 20 and more, and last year, I think there were 4 of us. Today, there were just the 2 of us. And we both passed because it's like group projects and you grade each other's and you correct it and then you don't even turn it in. You throw it in the garbage when you're done.
Okay, so it's correctable to 100%?
Correctable to 100%. Yes, there is a written exam. It's all about all kinds of things, systems, regulations. When do we turn the anti-icing system on? What conditions have to exist for that? When do we need to file an alternate airport? What weather conditions dictate that? What are the rules if we're flying internationally and how much fuel do it's all that jazz. So,
Okay. Just to
you
keep you
know,
on your toes, so ready to follow the rules all year long, right?
yeah, it's a lot of stuff. And
Okay.
some of it is a little dry. And by some, I mean 98% of it. And unfortunately, it's kind of gotten away from this. AQP has made the airlines a little bit more stringent about what they allow to happen. Like back in the olden days, one of the things that still happens is we still take way too many breaks in the classroom. So it's a 10-hour day, and you're getting like a 10-minute break every hour. So, can we cut down some of those breaks and our 1 hour plus lunch and maybe get out of there in 7 or 8 hours? Can we do it
So
that way? But no.
I've
So,
negotiated with the instructor, like, "Hey, can we skip one of the next 3 breaks and then agree to skip one of the 3 in the afternoon or the 4 in the afternoon and have a nice hour and a half lunch so we could sit down at a restaurant and enjoy a meal?" Because this 1 hour thing, by the time you get out of the building, you get scrambling through a Jimmy John's or a Jersey Mike's Subs or something
sure.
quick, ram back and shove it down your throat, sit back in your chair, and then have food coma
Yeah,
for the
we've
rest of
done
the
that. I see. I would negotiate the other way. I'd say, can we just eat at our desks and work through lunch and get out of here an hour earlier?
day.
That's
Work through lunch. I like that's a great
how
when
many
they're just
times are we?
clicking that slideshow thing, that button on the remote, ka-ching, 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 slide 3, slide 4,
Yeah,
slide 5.
and they don't even like back in the old days before AQP, a lot of times you'd come back from break and the first thing playing is some crazy YouTube video that the instructor found that somebody forwarded to them.
Why do all
And it
instructors do that?
to to keep because they know that you're checked out. They know that they need to get your attention back. And I I miss those days.
I'm gonna plug the YouTube people that made the Lego characters Living the Dream. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah, I love
Living
that.
the
Listen,
dream.
if you really
Oh,
wanna know what an airline if Cats on Guard isn't doing it for you, go check out the YouTube Lego Living the Dream airline. It's
what
pretty
it like
accurate.
4 minutes, 5 minutes? There's like 3 versions of it you can watch, 3 episodes.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Um, it's like all the little topics basically that we covered, but just done in 5 minutes instead of
Yeah,
50
it's
hours.
probably done better than we do it, so
Ah,
maybe
no. But
they'll
that was
they'll
on one day when I came back from lunch, and I'm like, "This is gold." Like, I got laughing, I got back into it, and that maybe they're good instructors for doing that because then I was like, "Ah," and I was awake, and then they're like, "Okay, real material, click." Dang, got me.
this recurrent training has a way of really I love the job. I love what it does for our life. Our career is we got it pretty good. Okay. I'm gonna admit to that right here in case anybody hasn't figured it out by listening. But this 1 week, and it's not just this week because it's a whole thing leading up to it, because you got to study. Because they're going to ask you questions, even though it's corrected to 100%. There are portions of it that you can fail, and that's the part where the stress comes, because after our ground school day of all that, and it's not just book work, it's you got to learn how to open and close the aircraft doors. And every door on every airplane you got to open and close, and learn how the slide rafts, and they are called slide rafts in some cases, how those inflate. And you have to, if you're going to do any over water flying and you have a raft on board, you have a raft drill. And you get in it.
Yes.
Oh my god, you won't believe, you know how many people can fit in a raft on an A320? Do you
Is it
remember?
45?
It's 44, but you can overload it to 55. So you can get
Okay.
50. So we get, like, say we have 12 people, 12 pilots in this class, we all get in that raft, and you're wall to wall with only 12 of you. Can you imagine 55 people? 55 panicking passengers, not even people that know what to expect. I'm talking, oh, what a nightmare. Can you imagine?
So, I actually think that might be beneficial in, like, a cold weather ditching, like in Lake Michigan or, like, the Atlantic Ocean in winter, that your, like, body heat collectively will help if you're all just belly to belly, um, as a group. I don't know, that kinda sounds cozy in the
Well,
winter, but in the summer, that
you know
must
what?
suck.
Interestingly, part of the raft drill is assigning people tasks, learning who should do what. And one of the tasks is, once everybody's in the raft and everyone's accounted for, there is a canopy that needs to be erected and put up over the raft. And it's a very bright color, so it's very attractive to search planes and stuff. But that canopy would, in fact, capture all that body heat and any radiation from the sun or anything like that. So it probably would be pretty warm, especially if you're in a tropical environment or something. I don't know about Lake Michigan in the winter, but better than nothing, I guess. I think
Yeah, right. Oh,
I'd still aim for the beach if I was gonna be putting down there.
absolutely. I enjoyed my raft training. I like that survival stuff. I have an inflatable raft in for my boat in case we ever start to sink. Um, so I actually take that training because I would never blow my own up and then have to pay to repack it or get a new one. So I take their training.
I wanna clarify, when I did it in initial training, the raft was in an actual swimming pool, floating. Every year when we do it, the rafts are just sitting in a warehouse on the floor. So
But the pool one, I remember I love the pool one because like everyone like they're like, "Oh, have fun getting up." It's a nightmare, like because this rope is just dangling in the water, and then when you put your foot on it, your weight puts you like under the raft, so you pretty much almost drown to use the ladder. And then you have to be really strong to hurl yourself over. It's all upper body to get in because the more weight you put on your feet just go under the raft underwater because the
so the
rope is
trick
hanging you
there
underwater.
is get the strongest person in the raft first, and then they can hoist everybody up
Oh yeah,
afterward.
just make somebody else do all the hard work.
That's
Got it.
it. Yeah,
And then you take command after all the hard work's done. Got
right.
it.
So the raft drill is done. Then we move on to firefighting, which in the old days, we would have a grill, throw some charcoal in the grill, light it on fire, put it out, relight it, do it, and then cook something. Now the fires are electronic. It's a little like a holographic image of a fire that you point a fake little. Yeah, I see you shaking your head over there, like
I'm rolling
I
my
know,
eyes, shaking my head, doing the whole 13-year-old girl thing, like,
but you're not wrong.
boring. No, it's like a
Yeah,
laser. I was like a laser pointer inside of a
yeah,
fire extinguisher, and they're like, "Oh, look,
yeah.
your laser touched the screen. You win."
But that's all part of it. When I was a flight attendant, we used to actually slide down the raft.
Yes.
They had a mock up of the airplane up at actual sitting on the
At
landing
height.
gear height. Yeah, and you had to actually go down that raft, and I remember it was pretty intense. They would fill the fuselage, they would fill the cabin with smoke, and really simulate. And I remember some of those flight attendant candidates kind of freaked out, and I think that might have been why they did it. It's like if you can't handle this fake situation, you're out.
So I thought it was a lot of fun, but there was a little bit of adrenaline because you have to like jump into midair and kick your feet forward and cross your arms and land on your butt and you like bounce slide down the slide raft.
Yeah,
So
and
you
it's a
get to the
narrow
that
slide. So if you're a bad jumper and you miss, that's a bad
yeah.
day.
Yeah. That's what I felt like. Oh, I better get this right or I'm gonna go kaplop on the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought these things were a lot of fun annually. It's like after the first couple, you're like, anyway, moving on, right? But like it was fun initially.
No, I don't know. But year after year, it really, and the closer I get to the end of this, I'm just like, I even called yesterday, how many of these do I have left? Yeah. Okay. That number's still higher than I want it to be, but it's getting lower as we get there. So,
So one thing I
um,
noticed after, gosh, I must have gone through almost 20 recurrents now, or recurrent initials, whatever, over the years, and I think we're pushing 20 years. So, um, all these, not all of, some of these videos that we have to watch, you ever notice that like some of them don't age, like they don't, or they don't
oh
ever
no.
get new.
Yeah. Though they're very aged.
It's like
That's,
the FAA was ILS PRM, um, parallel or precision runway monitoring, parallel runway
yeah.
monitoring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
With
it's
the
like
little
2 airplanes landing.
synthesizer theme song music from the early 80s.
It's like this rotating radar screen on the screen with the old school radar, this sweeping green line with the boop, boop, boop. Oh, and, um, it's like from '84 or something, and they've never updated the video.
No, because nothing ever changes.
And they show the planes taxiing around, and it's livery from like TWA, which hasn't existed in however long. The airplanes, some of the airplanes that are in that video don't even fly anymore in the airspace system. There's a bunch of like 727s parked in jetways. They're like, come on, fellas, update this video. And that, oh, or like the people that they have speaking in these videos have like the '80s puffy haircut, or the clothing. They have like a pager on their belt. You know,
Three-piece suit.
Remember, aviation safety is the number one concern for crew members.
And
You,
you know what the
or only
worst part
you.
is? The worst part is we watch these same videos year after year after year, and after you've seen it so many times, it's meaningless. You don't pay
Yeah.
attention.
I
So
had a really cool instructor at, I won't, just so I don't, like, pin anybody under the bus. Whenever it was, like, the repeat video, from the '80s, if it was one of those, there was a 22-minute video and, like, a 10-minute video that we're required to watch. He would put the video on and go, "I've gotta go fill out paperwork outside of this door. I'm gonna close the door, and I'll come in a few minutes before it ends." And that was like a signal to us, like, if he knew everybody in the class, like, pretty well, it was our signal to just screw around for 18 minutes, and so it was like, "Alright, thank you. We know we've seen this a dozen times, and it hasn't changed in 30 years, so we're good."
well, you know what's funny that you say that? When we were given our written exam and it was just the two of us, instructor hands out the papers. Actually, no, it was a scan a QR code and then your test will pop up.
Well, that's
So we
cool.
so we each did that and it said, "Hello, Captain Howe. Welcome to your test." And so I'm taking my test and I'm like, "Hey, what'd you get for the first one?" And he gave me an answer and I'm like, "That's not one of the choices."
You
I'm
have
like,
random test banks,
"Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah."
So yours was a
But
temperature and his was like a pounds value of fuel or something, and yours is a
yeah,
temperature
but
question?
we figured out we did have all the same questions. They were just scattered in different spots. So
Oh,
somehow he did
smart.
better than me.
I mean, y'all got 100, so.
We all got 100 in the end.
So one thing they didn't tell me at the new recurrent place I'm going to, they don't tell you that it's gonna be correctable to 100, they just give you the quiz, and it's the first day you get there. So you haven't gotten any of that refresher material yet. This is like,
Oh,
"Oh my gosh, did I show up prepared or not?" Yeah.
oh my gosh.
It's a wake-up call quiz, and I like it because it kicks me in the butt to, like, am I did I prepare enough for Recurrent? And if I didn't, like, I really need to be paying attention for the next few days. And if I ace that thing, like, oh, okay, the next few days is gonna be a breeze. So I kinda like the day 1 quiz.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well,
What do you
that
think? Like, if you got a day 1, like,
well,
test.
I I got a different wake up call, kind of, if I may. We have these guys that come in and they give this little talk. So in the new fancy airlines that everybody flies, every bit of data, every button you push, every control you turn, it all gets recorded in real time down at some control center, and then it goes into a database, and there are people analyzing every little thing that we do. And if you go a little bit over a line, it flags it and it says, "Hey, investigate this." So things that go a little bit more than a little bit above the line, they really get an investigation. So we have a team of people that do this every year, and they come in and they talk to the recurrent group to tell them about certain trends that they're seeing, things that are going wrong that need to be addressed. And when this guy comes in and he shows us all this stuff, I'm sitting here watching, hearing, and they show us the data. They show us the computers. It's all de-identified. There's no way to know who this was unless you recognize yourself up there. And I'm like, oh my God, how close are we to killing ourselves every time we go up there? And I'm like, how have I gotten away? I feel terrible at the end of it. Like, how am I not dead and everyone else with me?
Are you talking about Fuqua?
Yeah, but I didn't want to use that word because I don't
No,
know if
it's
that's
every
the,
airline
is it
uses
every,
that. Like,
it's the
even
same word
even the
everywhere.
private jets use Fuqua, yeah.
Okay. I
Flight
don't
operations
know. I
quality
only work
assurance.
in one place. I don't know what everybody calls it.
Okay, so everybody so everyone's, like, into the analytics software that you're talking about for the
Yeah.
company
Yeah.
is different from airline to airline. I don't know what
Okay.
your airline calls it or my operation calls it,
But
but
yes, folk
fo
with data.
flight operations quality assurance. You're just going back to check, that, so, like, what's the 10,000, you turn the seatbelt sign on, right? They can see if the airplane was at 12,000 before you, or 8,000 descending before you turn it on, so they know that you were late to tell the flight attendants it's time to buckle up. They know, and then, like, if one of them gets hurt and they go pull that data from some turbulence, they're gonna go, "Hey, the pilots didn't have the seatbelt sign on in time, so they didn't know," and then you're gonna get a phone call from your chief pilot, because then they're gonna they de-identify it, but then they're gonna re-identify it and come get your ass.
Yeah, and the folk with data, the folk, what do they call them? The gatekeeper.
Yes.
They know who you are. That's the only person that knows who you are. I got a call from one day. I had, I was going into this airport and there was a thunderstorm on top. It's like sitting right over the top of the airport, and it was a really bad approach. And we came in high and fast, and I was struggling to get down, and I couldn't get low enough. And I had every piece of drag. I had gear. I had all my flaps. I had ground spoiler or speed brakes out, and it just wasn't going to work. And I made the decision to go around. And so we call for the go around, and the guy says, fly, straight ahead, climb to 3,000. I'm like, no, that's where that thunderstorm is.
Okay.
So I didn't climb, and as a result, we didn't ever get positive rate, and the FO never called for gear up, which I was too busy fighting all this other nasty junk. I didn't realize it. Ended up going too fast and what's called an overspeed. We were flying faster than we're allowed with flaps out. And I get a little ding for that. Okay. We fixed that problem. It was one of the ugliest go arounds anyone's ever done. Coming around, we get a TCAS RA,
Oh my!
which
In the same flight?
on the same flight on now, for the listener, TCAS RA is every airplane has a computer, not every airplane, but all your major airliners and some other private jets, they have computers that talk to each other in the sky. And they say, hey, I'm coming here. Where are you? Okay, we're going to be okay. We're not going to hit each other. Or sometimes it's, yes, we're going to hit each other. And then the airplanes coordinate what they should do to avoid. And then they tell us, the pilots, to do this thing.
This way you're not both turning like, if I go left and they go right, we both hit each other. So the
Right.
computers will sort this out and say, "We're both gonna go right and head on and miss each other,"
Or we're going to
or
climb or descend.
if we
One's
climb,
gonna
they descend.
one's exactly. So
That
I get this alert after this really ugly go around. I get this alert and it says maintain vertical speed, which means don't climb, don't descend, just keep doing what you're doing. So I said, okay. Now, in our system, the the procedure is you get an RA. If it tells you what to do, you turn the autopilot off so that you're primed to do it. After all of that I had just been through, if it said to me, maintain vertical speed, I said, that's not a climb, that's not a descent. I'm a little hyped up after what I just did. I am leaving my autopilot on. I didn't feel the need to turn it off. I had a call from the gatekeeper that night, and he said, you really have to turn that autopilot off. It says to do it, you have to do it. I said, okay, fine. I understand. I'm just curious though. Did you see everything that preceded this little thing? Because he's like, yeah, yeah, we saw that, but this is the reason. I'm like, okay, whatever, man.
they don't
So
care about all the things that led up to that. They just only see what flags.
yeah, I guess so. So hearing these stories in that ground school was like, oh my god, how is everybody not dead at this point in the world? So, um, I mean, I will say that's kind of like the highlight of the day, though, because it's not boring book stuff. It's actually fairly interesting and also heart stopping at the same time. So
I
that's day
enjoy my
one.
scenarios, like, the day 2 well, okay, yeah, so, like, after grou I enjoy the ground school discussions too, though, 'cause, I like to hear the instructor sees groups of us pilots week after week after week. So they hear what's going on that I don't hear what's actually going on. And we'll find these like gotchas, or I like the changes and new things like, hey, do you guys know that we changed the way you're going to access your emergency procedures? And a lot of people, like the first time I was in, I think one, it was right after I flew with you. They're like, hey, we have a new way to do it on the iPad. And it was easier for me and harder for others. I think I was fairly new to it, so it was just another change for me. But those that have been using the old app were like super bad out of shape about it. But the first, and they know some people have been out of shape, they know some people aren't. So the first thing they did on day one or day two was everyone, let's go to an engine fire and then an evacuation using the new way. And we're going to go slowly, step by step. And you don't have to admit whether you were proficient in it or not. They don't care. They just want everyone to do it together. And you can shut your, you don't have to admit, I didn't know how to do this, or I didn't know how to do it the new way. Yes, can any of us conduct an evacuation? Every one of us can. Whether it's the way they want it done is the difference. So they just did it the way they want you to do it. You saw it. If you weren't super proficient before, Hopefully you are now, and then there you go, back off to your flock, you know?
Yep, yep. Well, that's most of day one, which is a long day when you're not used to just sitting in one. We sit in the flight deck, but I don't know, it's. I'm glad it's over when that day is over. But then stress begins on day two because then you got your oral exam and your what's basically your check ride, and that oral exam, you never know what they're going to ask you. There's a whole bank of questions that you can study from, all the books, all the limitations, all the memory, and all the things that, like the TCAS RA, that's a memory thing that happens, you're triggered automatically. So they just jump in there randomly, and some of these instructors want you to tear the airplane apart and rebuild it, and some of them are just like, okay, well, let's just go real easy. One or two questions. Okay, you guys know what you're talking about. And that's it. Those guys are a dream, but also you don't learn very much from them. So um, I do stress about that leading up to that. Once that oral exam is over, you get in that simulator. Now you're doing things like taking off. You get an engine failure right on takeoff as you're hitting that critical speed on the runway, which we call V1. Do you continue to take off with one engine, or do you stop on the remaining runway if you have enough? It's it's a lot of critical decision making, and it is stressful.
If
So
I remember correctly, you guys got I would think I was on my way out when you guys got it. It was like runway overrun software where it, like,
yeah,
projects on the screen based on,
yes,
like, the wind and the ground speed and how heavy you are, and the computer decides for you before you've ever hit the runway if you don't have enough runway. It just, like, it just monitors energy, and it knows how much feet you need, and, like, as you slow down, if you're not slowing down enough, like, it'll tell you, like, more brakes or something like that.
yeah.
Um,
Um, we get a thing printed out with our takeoff data, with our speeds and our weights and all this thing. And then there's a thing printed on the last page of the paper. It's called ASDR.
accelerate, stop, distance remaining.
Right. Which you'd like that number to be a big number, you know?
Did I get that right?
I think yes, you did.
Cool.
Congratulations. So yeah, you want that number to be like in the thousands. I would love to stop on the runway if I have to with thousands of feet remaining. We got in one the other day. We were doing a takeoff out of New York's LaGuardia Airport in the simulator, which is 7,000 feet long, and our accelerate stop distance remaining was 12.
12 feet.
12 feet.
You have
12
12
feet.
feet while doing 180 miles an hour at rotation speed to decide and get the plane to stop without going into the river.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fun.
And I did it. I did it. And
Yeah, that's awesome.
I had about 1,000 feet left when when we finally came to a stop. So
So I wonder
yay
if that
me.
number has like a, a human factors time thing, like the Sully movie, where they're like, give me some seconds of human
Well,
processing.
I'm sure it doesn't because, you get onto the runway and you start to spool up your motors, and they take a few seconds to get up to full speed, but your airplane's rolling. You know,
Yeah.
you're chewing up very little. With very little thrust, you're wasting space behind you, or you could sit there with your feet on the brakes and get full power, and you're going to have more runway. If you, so yeah, no, it can't account for any of that stuff. I don't think.
Oh, okay. That's been a while for me.
Yeah.
Sorry. So what else happened on day two?
On day two, you do your engine fail. You go up, you do your basic things like you're gonna fly instrument approaches. You're gonna do a lot of go arounds where you don't land. You pretend you're gonna land, and then oh, there's a truck on the runway. Go around. So you practice go arounds, and then you practice landing with one engine inoperative. Um, you know, these things don't bother me so much because it's the nuanced things where it's something that you maybe have never encountered before, and you have to figure it out. There's a whole book of things, that scenarios that could happen, and some that are more likely to happen than others. You study more, you're more familiar with them. It's you know this hydraulic system failed, and that has affected this flight system, and now you've lost certain controllability in the airplane, and now it's I don't know. We passed. We passed.
All
Like
right.
I said, I
I
walk out at the end of the day and I purge it, which is
I
probably not
like
the way to go.
I like the sim better though. I think I find it fun because I hope I never have to see any of these things in real life, but I love dealing with them successfully, not crashing 5 times if possible. Um, I gotta dig on you there. No, no, I
You know
like
why that happened? I'm
it's
gonna tell you. Do you know
why?
why that happened?
What'd you do?
I had a great misunderstanding of the automation of the Airbus when I got into initial training. And I kept hearing about how automated it was and it's fly by wire this and everything's computer controlled. So the first time I get a V1 cut, which is where you lose one engine at that critical rotation speed, you still take off because it's safer to take off than it is to try to stop. And I just believed that the automation would compensate for all of the aerodynamic changes, and I did not apply the appropriate rudder that was
Oh,
necessary to keep the airplane going straight. And it took about 5 crashes before the instructor realized that was what I was doing wrong. After that, no problem. Haven't crashed
oh,
since. So,
rudder, huh?
yeah.
That's all it
Do you believe they
just a
still
little
do that in these big airliners?
what, rudders?
Yeah.
This is autocorrect, like auto yaw or
That's
auto
what I thought.
rudder. I
Yeah,
know, right?
that's
Wouldn't
what
that
I
be
thought.
easy? Keep the
Yep.
rudder, keep it centered. That's all you until landing, and then disable it. Um, Actually, that'd be a cool software question for the Airbus engineers because they love to like take the pilot thinking out of flying. They just have this philosophy of like taking it out of your hands and letting the computer do it. So until like landing, like let the rudder just keep you coordinated. Keep the rudder, keep the ball in the middle. What do they call it?
Yeah.
Trapezoid now
Yeah.
at the top of
Yeah.
the
It's a
display.
trapezoid. In our,
Yeah,
yep.
so keep that thing on the delta or whatever. I don't know what the people call it. Anyway, keep it centered so that you don't roll or lose control, and then like disable it for from 100 feet or 200 feet down on landing, so you can just kick the kick out method or whatever on the crosswind landings. That's the only time you need that rudder pedal in an Airbus, in my opinion.
Well, I surely needed it that day, and I learned. So,
Oh boy. Hey,
um,
so I got I'm also in a fly-by-wire airplane, and similar philosophies, but it's an American company, and so they have to have their own verbiage.
can we explain what fly-by-wire means just for the uninitiated out there?
So old planes, like the Wright brothers used like bicycle cables and brake cables and sprockets, and you would turn a wheel and it would rotate a gear that rotated a chain that moved this surface on the end of the wing to make the wing move. And that progressed into hydraulically backed up flight controls, like in a DC-9. There were still like cables moving things, but they had hydraulic boosters to help with the pressure. And then it went to like I think Dassault and the Falcon, the French company, they had dual hydraulic barrels of like just hydraulic struts that would move it back. So there was literally no feel between your controls and making the elevator, the ailerons, or the rudder move. So you had to create an artificial feel unit to like make it feel like you were flying an airplane again, right? And then that progressed into fly by wire where electric controllers, you put an input into the stick or the yoke, and then the computer goes, "Oh, they want to turn left. So I'll make the surfaces do left stuff." And then I'll tell them that I'm doing it. And then when you're done with it, you like undo the signal from your so you're just like playing with a joystick or a mouse at your computer. You're not actually moving the plane. And earlier in another episode, I mentioned stick and rudder skills where old school planes, you actually felt the wind and the load and the heaviness of the airplane and the in your stick or yoke and the rudder pedals. Like if it's a vibration or turbulence, you felt it in the controls. Fly by wire, not a thing. The computer and the servos are handling that. So yes,
Okay.
in a nutshell.
Yes. Very good long-winded answer. If listeners still listening, good for you.
No, just Wikipedia as a short version of that. Go look at that.
So, so you're in a fly-by-wire again. You were there's a reason you brought that up. I don't remember what it was.
No,
We'll have to
okay,
play the
sorry.
tape back.
Thank you for circling back for me.
Yeah.
I realized that all these fly-by-wire airplanes are basically the same thing, but because of like their manufacturer philosophies, if you will, they refuse to call the things the same things. So like when you have to, so like what do you when you have a man speed button in the Airbus, right?
Man speed, yeah.
Yeah, what does that mean to you?
The man speed button means if you're in manual mode, I, the pilot, decide what the speed is. If
But if
if
you
I
push it
if I
yeah, push it
push it,
eh,
then it goes to managed speed. And
managed, not manual,
manage
managed.
yeah, managed is where the computers decide the speed. So you're basically giving control over to the Airbus.
And when you pull on it, it was called selected speed.
Correct.
Well, I got into this new airplane that had a man speed button, which was cool.
Yeah.
And so I was pushing the man speed button and it screwed me up because this other manufacturer was like, we can't do the same thing Airbus does. We're going to call our man speed button, it's going to be manual speed. And the other version is going to be called auto speeds. So
Jeez.
now it's the opposite for me. Pushing that button takes away the managed speed. It actually so auto speed is managed, and my pushing of the man speed button, it does the opposite of what the Airbus would do.
It's okay. Now you've been in this new plane for about a year and a half, I think. So
About a year.
how
Yeah.
long did it take you to reverse that in your brain?
In the sim, it was horrendous. um, and I still, on rare occasions, if I'm already like task saturated, I might reactively do it. I still have more Airbus time in my logbook than the new plane. So, like under a seriously heavy load in the sim, like an engine fire, and now we have a electrical shorts, and we're going crazy, and I need the airplane to just take over for a minute, like autopilot man speed, right? And they're like, "Why do you want man speed?" And I was like, "Oh, dang it, I'm not an Airbus." I want man speed so the plane can think about how fast I'm supposed to go. But doing that in the oh geez. Anyway, so all these different manufacturers have so what are they called in the Airbus when you like reduce your electrical load? Is it essential and not essential? I can't
Come
remember.
on, don't get me into that stuff. My
Okay.
training's over.
All right. So in French Falcon world, I used to fly Falcon. It's called like load shed and non shed. Like does it sheds the load of all the non essential stuff if you lose electrical equipment? And if you need it really badly, even under electrical like engine failure or loss of batteries,
And you're talking
it
non-essential stuff like coffee makers and light bulbs, right?
yes, galley power and
Yeah.
bathroom flushes.
Yeah.
That's called load shed in the
Bathroom flush
French.
is gonna become essential at some point.
If this gets bad enough, we're not gonna need it's not gonna make it to the
You know,
bathroom.
"Oh, this bathroom's
So,
overflowing. Can't we put the flusher back on?"
well, you know what this is like? You know what? Compare Dassault Falcon French to an American
Is
company,
that how you
Cessna
say it?
maybe.
Dassault?
Dassault, yeah.
That's how American I am. I always thought it was Dassault.
Dassault.
Oh my
There's
god.
a little New York in there. So it's kind of like Apple and Android, like the battle. Like we both have awesome cameras, but I'm gonna call mine, Magic Erase to clear up your picture, and Android's gonna call it like Auto Tune. Like it's the same function. Just call it what it is. So we can all speak the same tune. No, Android people have to have their Android language, and Apple people have to have their Apple language. It's the same
Yeah.
thing.
Airbus, Boeing, Embraer, all of them.
Uh,
Dassault? Dassault?
that
How you say that?
Dassault.
Yeah.
And probably it's more French. I'd have to hold the nose a little. Dassault. Oh, okay. Yeah, you got more questions about weekly training? Write us an email,
Weekly training.
catsonguard@gmail.com.
God, if we go to weekly
Oh,
training, I'm done.
sorry, the week-long training that happens
Yeah.
annually. Let me rephrase that.
Thank you.
Annual
Thank you.
training for a week.
You about stopped my heart there.
No, 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 no. It's so the situation I think I had at Recurrent that I noticed. Well, you're random people too. Is so the difference with you guys is you're all operating under the same SOPs, standard operating procedures.
That's the
So
idea.
you show up and regardless of who you sit in the cockpit with, from like the first moment you walk through the cockpit door till when you're packing it up to walk off the plane, you can both expect equally of the other person to do exactly what the script says you'll do, with the exception of some like oddball scenarios where you get to do some pilot decision making,
I
right?
believe we covered that in Worst Pilots Parts 1 and 2.
Yes. So
Yeah,
so
go
I didn't
listen to that one
cover.
if you didn't.
So I can't say that's worst pilots for me because every time I go to a private training facility, I get paired with whoever else paid for a week of training that week.
Oh,
So the last session I had, I was with a gentleman that worked for like a health company, like Johnson and Johnson or SC
So
Johnson or who makes
not
Ziploc
even one of your
bags.
coworkers.
No, because that would empty out our fleet. We have so few pilots. You wouldn't
Oh,
ever want to
yeah.
commit 2 pilots
I
to a
never
training event.
considered that. That's
So I
very
get in this
interesting.
yeah. So you meet some random person you've never seen before, but that happens at regular airlines too. You have no idea how they do their training program, no idea what their call outs, procedures, SOPs are at their company. And he was telling me all about his trips and his fun. We actually about the same age. We have young kids, we got along. But we got in the sim together and it was I mean, imagine the chaos of just getting in with somebody who doesn't have your call outs, procedures, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Can
Why
you
is
switch the
anybody
screens
training
up?"
like that? My God.
It was fine. I learned some things that I don't do and the people at my company don't do that they do.
Okay.
So that was kinda
That's
cool,
good.
and then he sees the way we do it, and
And then
maybe
you
they
take
pluck
that
a
back to your place and you say, "Hey guys, let's try this."
if it's better,
Yeah.
and if it's
Okay.
worse, you go, "I'm never doing that again."
Right.
So, yeah, it was a definitely a different experience under that
Never.
guise.
I have never heard that, but sure. Okay.
I too like to have fun when I'm not in the classroom or in the sim at Recurrent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mentioned that I do like to golf, and we had a morning sim that ended at like, I don't know, 11 a.m., noon-ish. I said, we still have the rest of the Wednesday afternoon and no one else is on a golf course on a Wednesday afternoon. He goes, I like to play golf a lot. And I said, that's cool. Do you want to like go through the sim and then we'll get lunch and play some golf? He goes, actually, I have my clubs with me.
Oh,
At
well, there you go.
how did you bring your clubs to Recurrent Training? I asked because I'm curious. Um, because we all bought airline tickets. I'm like, are you telling me you brought like a bag and a backpack and then some golf clubs to work? So he
Serious
says,
golfer is gonna
no.
do that, yeah.
Well, what he did was he took his golf bag and its travel case, and he instead of a suitcase that you would check at the gate, not gate, check at the walk-in
Counter?
counter. Yeah, at the
Yeah.
first counter. He laid all of his clothes in his golf bag. So he made his golf bag into his suitcase, but
Oh,
it happened to have clubs in there, shoes, collared shirts, polos, button downs, pants. So all of it was already in the golf case. And instead of having a bag and a golf bag, he just brought the golf bag.
alright.
And he had
Well,
options. And it
he
was
made it
cool that
work.
I got to yeah, it was very different Recurrent this last one that I've ever been. I've never played golf on Recurrent. What was your check ride day? We didn't
My
talk
check
about that.
well, that's the thing. They break it up because of this new AQP program. In the olden days, you would get a practice day, which was identical to your check ride day. So that was when you're doing those V1 cuts, the engine failures, the single engine approaches and landings, all the instrument procedures. They test you on that. How do you do? Are you within the standards that we've set? Which, okay, you pass. If not, okay, then you have to come back and redo it. Now with AQP, it's a little different. It's very hard. In fact, you can't fail check ride day. And what you do is you don't meet the standards, they stop, they train you on it, you do it again. Okay, now you're good. And then so yeah, it's what you call a non-jeopardy event. So it really does take the pressure off, makes it a little bit more enjoyable. The second day is what we call the line oriented experience. Is basically you're simulating a flight. You're going to fly from Peoria to Kansas City and in real time. So you go over everything with your partner there as if you were doing an actual operating flight, and we're going to give you some sort of failure, some sort of equipment, some sort of an emergency along the way.
Not catastrophic, right? It's just
No,
like a let's
no,
see how you
not
handle it kind of
catastrophic.
thing.
Hey, this computer failed. What systems is that going to affect? And then how do you, as the captain and a crew member, work together as a team, which is a big part of it. They're actually called CRM, crew resource management. They're actually training and evaluating how you work as a team, which, like that whole thing you're talking about, SOP, standard operating procedure. I never met this guy who's coming in from having a tree fall on his fence the day before, and he's got that stress looming over him, and I've got the stress of the whole previous week leading up to, my mother-in-law's in the hospital and my kid got sick and we had graduation and field trips, and you come together. How do you make it work? So that's day 2. And then day 3, which we're now doing only every other year, is a day for, we call it EET, extended envelope training, which is,
I love
um,
that one.
oh, it's always been my least favorite day, but also my more favorite day now because it is strictly for learning. It is a non-Jeopardy event, and it was stressful when they introduced it, which was quite a few years back, because we were doing things that I had never done in this airplane before, flying upside down, and how do you fix that? You know, um, doing stalls and steep turns and things that used to be part of the Jeopardy event. They've taken it out, and now it's more a training event. So it's fun, and it actually is a learning experience. And I did learn some things. So you know, but I'll tell you the one thing about that day, there's a lot to it. It's jam packed with, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to, like, 15 different things. And they go through a full hour pre brief of explaining in great detail each individual thing. And it's just a word salad because at the end of it, I don't remember any of it. But I go into the simulator and we do it. And hey, I did pretty well. I got 2 excellents from my instructor. So that ain't too bad.
Did they give you a little smiley face sticker for the fridge or anything?
No, I had my own smiley when I got the first excellent, and when the second one came, I was over the moon, boy. There was no taking that away from me.
If only they knew you didn't remember any of it. You take one back. So
Yeah,
my favorite thing about EET, extended envelope training, is how applicable it is to the real world. So they come up with these scenarios based on things people have seen that they weren't ready for in real life. Like, I don't remember the date, but I know there was a big like A380 that was flying like over the top and across, but not in a collision course, but just like normal flying across, and a private jet, a small one, was like going under it, but behind it. So it wasn't a collision issue. What did happen though, and I think you can probably YouTube or Google this, but like the wake turbulence from behind the A380 flipped this private jet. I think it was a
yeah,
Challenger,
sure would.
flipped them upside down at like 38,000 feet. The people in this plane were upside down and spiraling. It twisted that plane like if you grabbed both ends of a Coke can empty and just rotated it, like you can see the wrinkle marks in the plane. I'm surprised the thing didn't break up in the air. Thank God. Anyway, so how often do jet pilots go inverted? Well, in the past, almost never. So we didn't practice for it. But now we saw these people recover from and live through a random bunch of
Oh, they
air, made their
survived.
airplane go upside down. And they
That's
figured it
incredible.
out, and that's from skill and experience and knowledge, right? But if you aren't skilled and experienced and knowledge a lot, maybe you don't survive it, maybe you do. But anyway, now we just say, hey, guess what? You're inverted. Figure it out. Or here's how to fix this. I love that. And like, as you said, there's no failing. We just want you to see it and
Yeah,
try
and
and
you know
be in
what?
the.
In my experience with it, it's not figure it out. It's here's your situation, here's how you fix it, and
Yes.
that I appreciate. So, thank you, instructors.
There was one other scenario that I wanted to tell you about. It was I think it was Aspen or somewhere in the mountains. And it was a place where if you lost your engine on the way out of the mountains, you'd like sink back down into the valley, and you'll never get enough altitude to climb back out on one engine, but you could snake your way through the valley, like of between the peaks. There's like an escape route out of the mountains. And they taught us like, hey, if you haven't cleared the mountaintops, you're not gonna. You gotta like descend back in and just like work the canal like Top Gun 2 where they
I
fly
was
through the
about
anyway.
to say, is this where they got Top Gun 2 from?
Maybe. I thought they got that from Star Wars, but that's for the other
No.
episode. So, um, but yeah, we got to like snake through the valleys of Colorado mountains until we got to like a drop off where it goes back to like a reasonable altitude. And that was only if you're like fully loaded, max gross takeoff weight, full fuel, and it's summer, which is also very possible. Like that a private jet needs to leave the mountain of Vail or Aspen, and then you lose an engine, but you haven't quite gotten out of the mountains yet. So I like those scenarios, and the fact that I can't fail it takes so much pressure off. Just go learn. you know? So you got home the next morning because so the company because the footprint of your training said you were gonna go back tonight. That
Yeah.
means that you're home now, but there's nothing they can that's not against the rules. That's actually well within the rules to make your own way home on your own accord, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was not going to do anything. In fact, it was the end of 6 days, so I wasn't legal to do anything anyway. So,
So this is
yeah,
just bonus time that we're recording on.
this is company time right now. Yeah. In
Sweet.
fact, I'm still there for another hour.
You're on the clock. That's
I
awesome.
am. Yep. So that's it. And then tomorrow, vacation begins.
Very nice.
That was a clever bit of bidding, actually, for this month. You get vacation and training in the same month, and they didn't put any flying on my schedule whatsoever.
That's cool. Huh.
Yeah.
Wow, you really know how to work the system.
It took, I've been, quite a few decades trying to figure it out, but I got it now. All right,
Well,
that's it.
you ready to wrap it up?
That's recurrent training. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to go off duty. I'm MC Howe. Send your questions to catsonguard@gmail.com.
And I'm Richard
Co-captain.
Million. Co-Captain Richard Million. See ya.
Bye.